So it's another tournament and England have failed miserably. In fact, I think they deserve a red card. In fact, I think Star Spreads deserve a mention for sending this to me. Great little little thing. Red and yellow cards, little notebook and a pen to write down the names of all the people that were booked. Anyhow, put that to one side. Yeah, what's going on with England? Why can't they perform? It's the statistical chance of them being this bad seems almost impossible. But interestingly enough, the thing that makes England perform so badly can also make traders perform badly, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Please like or dislike the video or leave a comment below. That will allow me to produce better videos and more of them in the future. So yeah, why do England lose? Well, there is actually a book written on it. Hopefully you can see that. And it was published quite a few years ago, but let me read to you some of the headlines from the section specifically entitled Why England Lose. Phase 1 pre-tournament, certainty that England will win the tournament. Phase 2, during the tournament, England meet a former enemy. Is this sounding familiar to you already? Wait till you hear the rest of it. Phase 3, the English conclude that the game turned on them with one piece of bad luck that could only happen to them. Phase 4, moreover, everyone else cheated. Phase 5, this was written before the 2010 World Cup. Bear this in mind. Phase 5, England are knocked out without getting anywhere near lifting the cup. Phase 6, the day after elimination, normal life resumes. Phase 7, a scapegoat is found. Phase 8, England enter the next tournament thinking that they will win it. There's actually loads of really interesting things in this book. It's an enjoyable read, and I must admit I don't know if I haven't checked to see if it's published anywhere, and I'm not going to stick up an affiliate link and ask you to pay me money to do it. You can Google it quickly and I'm sure you'll find it. But it's an entertaining read if you're into that sort of thing. But more importantly, why do England fail so hopelessly all of the time? And why are Wales in the semi-finals of the Euro 2016 as I speak? As that's happening tonight, and I'm really looking forward to that. Well, you can actually summarise what happens with England and what happens with a lot of traders in 2 words: performance anxiety. That is the fundamental issue that's at fault here. And the problem is everybody suffers from performance anxiety, but professional athletes tend to overcome it. If you look at tennis players, they're the people that so much can rest on a single point. And so they have to really work hard at overcoming performance anxiety. And performance anxiety is when you learn to play a sport, when you learn to trade as well, importantly. If you repeat the process time and time again, you sort of know what to expect and what's coming up in front of you. So you slip into this mode from having to think really hard about it. When you start trading, for example, you'll find that everything, the market looks totally random, none of it makes any sense, and you go into the market, and the instant you do that, it starts going in the other direction. And you're sort of thinking, what happened there? There's somebody looking over my shoulder, and he's determining where that trade's going to go. He knows what's going to go on. It's the market's fault. It's everybody else's fault apart from your own. And the fact is that everything you do relies upon you. Sometimes you can be unlucky, sometimes you can be lucky, but ultimately it's your decision. If you look at people that make good traders, they make a mistake and they just go, you know what, I completely screwed up and that's totally my fault. Never mind, on with the next trade. But if you have this issue about you where suddenly it's an external problem that created it, no it isn't, it was you. You lost the money. But that's actually fine. That's no problem at all. You can build on that and you can learn from your mistakes and move forward. But the problem is some people just never are able to do that. And if you get into a particular sport, for example, like football, or tennis, any sport, you practice and practice and practice, you get better and better and better and better, and you begin to do it automatically. The same thing happens actually with trading. Suddenly the market sings to you. That's the phrase that I use. I look at a market and I can hear it singing, and immediately I know if I like the sound or if it's just a load of noise. If it's a load of noise, then I'll just ignore it, and I may not trade the market at all. But if it's singing to me, then I do a bit of karaoke with it. Now, if you're at the top level of sport, it's a similar scenario. You get into the zone. So a tennis player will be hitting cross-court shots and then down the line and making his player move all over the place. And it feels like every shot is going to go in. But it breaks down at one particular point, and that is when you start thinking about what you're trying to do. Everything becomes sort of semi-autonomous, and everything flows. And when you're playing sport, it's important that happens, because everything, it becomes a sort of semi-automatic reaction. You've practiced it so much, you've rehearsed this shot so often, the trainer has sent you in this direction so often, you know where you're going to hit the ball, that you just do it automatically. The issue comes when you're bouncing that ball and you're about to serve and you're thinking, I better get this in, because then all of a sudden your mind injects all of these other issues around it and you start to suffer from performance anxiety. I had a similar issue in sports that I played, and I may have recounted this story before, but it happened with me in golf, where when I practiced golf and went out on a round of golf myself when I was trying to learn, I seemed to play fine, but when I played in a competition I just fell to pieces. And when I went to a coach, he said it was because I was focusing and thinking the shot too much through, and I should just play it. I should have a general casual look thinking, yep, that's 75 yards, I need to get a pitching wedge and I'll just drop it in the front of the green, and then do it. Don't overthink it. If you start thinking about it, then that, muscle memory, everything that you're going to do starts to break down. So the performance anxiety that hits England is because of their past failures and their failure in penalty shootout. The strike rate at penalty shootout is absolutely appalling for England. It's way below what it should be. Even if it was totally random, which it is not, you should score sort of 70, 80 or more % of your penalties, probably even higher. There's no rational explanation other than performance anxiety for why England are so bad. But also at the major tournaments as well. When they played against Iceland, it was the most hopeless display I have ever seen. And I'm not exaggerating there. I've seen a lot of terrible things, but that really outranked them all. And it was like every time they went to touch the ball or receive the ball, they just couldn't do it. And you could see the anxiety building dramatically throughout the match. So when they went 1-0 up, my angle on that was fantastic, but they need to hold on to that lead for a reasonable period of time. Because if they do that, the confidence will build and they'll start to play properly. But of course, disaster upon disasters, an equaliser came fairly quickly. So imagine you go from this state of, we're going to win this, we've scored really quickly, this could be 3 or 4-0, something like that, to the goal goes in and they're suddenly thinking, we can't afford to lose this. And suddenly the performance and anxiety creeps in. And then of course, Iceland scored again, so England needed a really quick response and definitely one before half-time. Otherwise, the anxiety would go massively up in the second half. So when they didn't get that goal at half-time, I knew that everything was pretty much over, and that was it, and that England would not recover. And the performance anxiety comes from another angles. There was an interview done afterwards, I can't remember who it was with, but he was an ex-England player, and he was saying, when that Iceland goal went in, he goes, all of the players were thinking, oh no, we better win this, and they were imagining the newspaper headlines and the flack that they would get. And it was actually that caused England to fail. Nothing to do with the talent that they have. It's, England don't need a coach, they need a psychologist. And I've said this for years, that's what they need to turn around their fortunes. They have players that can play, but the amount of anxiety and stress that they feel is amplified way beyond what is realistically should be the case. But half of the problem is they get paid too much money. They're getting paid an absolute fortune. So they expect, and the expectations are that they should perform to that level, and they never do. But it's because of the money that they suffer more stress and anxiety. So I'm not totally sure how you solve that. When they were having problems with penalties, I suggested that maybe they should practice penalties at half-time or in a competitive situation. Why not have a penalty shootout tournament of some sort that takes place so they get used to performing in pressure situations or something. But I think there are a number of facets that play in and against England. And they also don't have a plan of how to deal with that. So they really, 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 really need to focus on that. Otherwise, they can never win. I can see a situation at the moment, if it stands the way that it does, that in my lifetime, there will never be a credible England performance. But the interesting thing is performance anxiety affects everybody from the lowest level of sport to the highest level of sport. And also you see it within trading markets as well. When you're looking for a positive outcome, imagine it's like in that England match. You make a trade and you're thinking, yay, fantastic. And then suddenly that goes back to zero and you're thinking, I can't afford to lose money here. And then you do get into a loss-making position. All of a sudden you cut that position out, when in fact maybe your trade was correct in the first place. But performance anxiety affects everybody. And whatever job you're doing or whatever task you're trying to fulfill, you have to come up with coping mechanisms to overcome that. And the great thing is you could. When I first started trading, I was trading short-term and financial markets, and it was an absolute disaster. And that was because I couldn't cope with losses. I was getting anxious at the thought of losing money. And in fact, I learnt that it's fine to lose money. You just plough on. If you look at the German team, if they go a goal down, nothing really changes in their style of play. They keep on going at it consistently. You see it all of the time. But we haven't got that bred into the England players. But that's quite normal. It's a natural thing. You have to overcome it. And therefore, I think you can learn a lesson from the way that England play or don't play, as we very often see. And that is that performance anxiety just destroys your confidence and your ability to do what you should be doing automatically. And you've got to fight that at every opportunity. But the great thing is, I went from the situation where I couldn't trade short term to where I totally understand it now, and I'm completely confident. So even if I have a setback, I just carry on. I follow that path. I don't get too excited when I'm 3-0 up after 5 minutes, and I don't get too worried if I'm 2-0 down after 5 minutes, because I know that by the end of the match I would have got back into it and I probably would have ended up winning it. And I suggest that's the attitude that you adopt when you're trading. Click here to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get instant notification of new videos as they're released.